Everyone has a story about car insurance in South Africa. Some say that it's useless and it never pays out, while others swear by it, saying it saved them when they needed it most. Whatever your opinion of car insurance in South Africa may be, the truth is that 65% of most tourists in this country are not insured, putting them at risk of losing hundreds of thousands of rands if a mistake were to be made. But why is that? Why are we not going out of our way to insure the one thing that we spend most of our salary on? Well, that's what we're going to try and figure out in this video by scraping tens of thousands of Hello Peter reviews for 10 of the biggest insurers in South Africa to see, number one, which insurer South Africans are most happy with, and number two, which insurance companies are more likely to pay you in the case of a claim. So then sit back, relax, and let's have a conversation. Let's talk about the very complicated world of car insurance in South Africa and try to see if we can separate fact from fiction. Like I already said in the intro, around 65% of South African road users are not insured, which is very alarming considering that as of Q4 of 2024, the average car loan value was pegged at 250,000 rands. So with cars being that expensive nowadays, why are a majority of us not making sure that we are covered in case anything were to happen to those said cars? Well, there's actually a plethora of reasons why this is happening, one of which being overconfidence and optimism bias. According to this research paper right here, quote, in the psychological literature, overconfidence is defined as the tendency of an individual to exaggerate their skills, expectations of success, the likelihood of positive outcomes, or the accuracy of their knowledge, and quote. This definition perfectly describes what optimism bias is in the context of road users. The belief that you are such a good driver that there is no possible way that you could get in an accident. You're so confident in yourself that you think that you're somehow immune to stuff like hijacking, theft, or an accident. On top of overestimating your luck, you also tend to overestimate your driving skill, like I've already said, while simultaneously underestimating the probability of something very bad happening to you. The problem with this is that you tend to be very optimistic about events that are way beyond your control, while overlooking the potential consequences of that optimism. Now, optimism bias is an inherently human trait, but it leads to us making really poor decisions when it comes to protecting our most valuable assets, because we tend to not think about the negative ramifications of them not being protected. Last year, when I was still in varsity and funded by NSFAS, I could afford comprehensive insurance for my Mazda and later my BMW, because what I could do is just use a bit of my stipend money to pay my insurance and then continue to live the rest of the month using the rest of the stipend money and whatever money the business made that month. But as soon as 2025 rolled around and I wasn't in varsity anymore, meaning that I wasn't funded by NSFAS anymore and I wasn't getting that 1.6 per month, my car insurance was the first expense to go, later followed by my tracker. I mean, I obviously still wanted my car to be insured and tracked. I mean, it was my most valuable asset at the time. My BMW was literally the most valuable thing that I owned, but the simple truth was I just couldn't afford it. I had had car insurance before, so I knew the risk that I was putting myself in by cancelling my car insurance, but at the end of the day, I wasn't in Johannesburg, I wasn't in varsity anymore, NSFAS wasn't giving me a stipend, I could not run my business anymore, all business activities were suspended when I moved back home. So I kind of I had no choice but to cancel those expenses. And this is the story for like a majority of South Africans, you know. They might start off having car insurance, but as soon as stuff starts getting rough, that car insurance is often the very first thing to go. It's a similar story for people who haven't had insurance before. The truth of the matter is that the high cost of living in this country means that by month end, we are already maxed out on our budget and are desperate for payday. There is literally no money left for insurance. The cost of food, water, electricity, school fees for the kids, fuel, etc. It all ends up at the end of the day, and even if you wanted to insure your car, you would have no money at the end of the month to do so. And considering the fact that we're already grossly overspending on the cars that we're driving, something that I did a video on, adding insurance on top of that makes less and less sense as you continue to think about it. The third and final factor contributing to a majority of us not being insured is a lack of trust in in the industry. Whether a family member of yours wrecked their car and claimed but didn't get paid, or you read a nightmarish review online, there are many reasons why the insurance industry would be perceived as untrustworthy and kind of scammy in a way. And that's kind of the entire point of this video. That's what we're going to get into, and that is what we're going to try and find out, is how trustworthy is the insurance industry? Is the stigma of the insurance industry being kind of a scam in a way? Is there any truth to that stigma? Well, we're going to find that out by using coding and AI to investigate these misconceptions and find out how untrustworthy or trustworthy South African car insurance companies really are. So then how are we going to go about doing this? How are we going to determine the trustworthiness of car insurance companies in South Africa? Well, I'm going to break that process down for you, but since I'm assuming that a majority of you guys are not really that interested in coding and AI data and sentiment analysis, I'm just going to give you the quick and dirty here on the video just so we can get to the results, and I'll have the full research paper for this little experiment that I'm running linked in the description. So click on that Google Drive link if you want to read the entire thing, detailing the methodology, how I got to these results, the results themselves. If you want to get into those nerdy details, even the code itself, the Google Colab notebook for all the code is in the appendix of that research paper. So if you want to dive into that, you're more than welcome to. Slight warning though, if you are even slightly proficient in Python and code in general, do prepare yourself for a massive cringe fest, because I did not know anything about code before going into this project. I also didn't know anything about AI data analysis as well. So this entire project was a bit of a learning curve for me, and I did use a lot of ChatGPT to learn all of the things that I am doing in this video. But let's get into it. So first I had to collect thousands of reviews from Hello Peter for 10 of the biggest insurers in South Africa. I ended up collecting 5,000 reviews per insurer for a total of 50,000 reviews. Almost 4 hours later, after I'd collected all of those reviews, I had to do something called a sentiment analysis, which is basically using AI to read each review and determine whether that review is positive, negative, or neutral. All the reviews could then be reviewed numerically using a spectrum, with 1 representing very positive, 0 representing neutral, and -1 representing very negative. I could then average out all the sentiment scores for each company, allowing me to make this graph right here, showing the insurers that South Africans are most and least happy with, at least according to this experiment. Here's the graph right here. You can pause the video, screenshot it, do whatever you want, or go in the drive, download it. I don't know. I don't care. Do whatever you want. Here's the graph right here. One thing I will say though is that this entire experiment is one big approximation. So make sure you do your own research. Do not make financial decisions based on this graph. I mean, yes, if everything went correctly, the insurer here with the highest sentiment score should be the one that you're happiest with, but you never know what you're gonna get with insurers. Statistically, they might be the best. I think the best one here was Insurance, according to the graph. They might be the best on paper, but you never know what your own experience is going to be. So make sure you do your own research. But like, you never really know how good or bad your specific luck could be. So let's take this a step further to come up with a bit of a more definite answer. Using more coding and AI wizardry, we can roughly figure out which company is most likely to pay you in case you claim. To do this, I just used a sorting model that picked out all of the reviews that were related to claims and used them to calculate the probability of each claim being paid out. And once again, the full methodology for all of this is in the description. I'm not gonna go too deep into this. This would be a very long video, so let's move on. But basically, I was able to come up with this table right here, showing you an approximation of the probability of you being paid out by each insurance company in South Africa, according to the 5,000 reviews that were taken into consideration. Once again, as you will see in the code, this is a very rough approximation of payout rates from the insurers. These are not the official payout rates from the insurers, so please do not make financial decisions based on this table. I just thought it is really interesting to see. So for example, OutSurance has a payout rate of 89% according to this experiment, meaning that 9 out of the 10 claim related reviews were positive about payouts, meaning that 9 out of 10 people probably got paid out. Probably. Once again, I cannot stress this enough. This is an approximation, ladies and gentlemen. Do not make financial decisions based on these findings. And the reason why I keep saying don't make financial decisions based on these findings is that there are a lot of limitations to keep in mind for this experiment, all of which are listed in the drive, but one of which being that reviews don't reflect reality. The reality of it is upset clients are more likely to leave a review than positive clients are, so there is a general skew towards negativity instead of positivity. That's something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is that the payout probability that I calculated, like I said, is not the probability that comes straight from the insurers. It is the payout probability that I calculated using claim related reviews. And finally, a positive claim review doesn't necessarily mean that the claim was paid out. Sometimes people are just happy with the process and the claim might still be pending to this day. Something else to keep in mind with this type of filtration system. But that's it for the numbers. A really interesting way to kind of see which insurers are the most likely to pay you out and the most likely to leave you satisfied. Let's wrap this video up and kind of connect everything that we've learned. One thing that I've learned during this little experiment is just how nuanced the insurance industry is in South Africa. You can't really say, like, for example, OutSurance is the best insurer out there just because it had the highest sentiment analysis and payout probability, because if you go on Hello Peter, there are still thousands of negative reviews on the profile. What this really shows is that these numbers are just approximations based on people's experiences. These numbers give us more of like patterns about which insurers receive more complaints than the others, or which insurers leave people satisfied when it comes to claims and so on and so forth. But one thing they don't do is that they don't guarantee what will happen in your personal case, just because of, like I said, how nuanced the industry is in the country. Because at the end of the day, you and me, we're not numbers, we're not statistics, we're individuals, we're human beings. I might crash my car and get instantly paid out, and you might crash your car and be led on for years on a process of just endless phone calls, even though we're covered under the same insurer. That's just the reality of insurance in South Africa. Unfortunately, is that it is very messy. But at least the data in this video gives us a bit of a starting point to kind of cut through all of the myths and misconceptions, and to learn that we mustn't make our decisions based on flashy slogans and sales. We really have to make sure that we are doing thorough research when it comes to car insurance in South Africa, so that you know that your insurer is the best one for you. So yeah, that was it for the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said, the entire paper for this video is linked in the description down below, and full disclosure, that research paper is AI generated. I prompted ChatGPT to give me a research paper based on everything that I went through for this little experiment to put everything together. So yeah, if it seems like it's too good to be true, it is. That is AI. I don't take shame in using AI. I don't have hours to sit here and write a research paper for a YouTube video. That's just not something I want to do with my life. But it still contains all the information that you need about this little experiment. You can nitpick it all you want. Comment down below, fight with me, say my experiment is flawed. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to learn. I'm here to expand my horizons, like I said in my YouTube post. But yeah, unfortunately, this video will not have a conclusive end. This video will not have a conclusive answer as to this is the best insurer that you should 100% use. You are 100% guaranteed to get paid out and everything's gonna be smooth. That's just not the nature of the insurance industry in this country. But I hope you learned something, and I hope that you take everything that an insurance salesman will tell you with a huge grain of salt from this point on. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching and goodbye.